All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm going to check and make sure all of our channels are working. So just give me a minute. And while I'm doing that, please share this live with your family, with your friends. We're going to have a great conversation. I'm here with my two beloved friends, historians.
That's right.
They are dear to the Doc Bookshop. They are historians. They have been studying Black history. How long have you been studying Black history, Rick?
For at least 40 years.
40 years. What about you, Pharaoh?
About the same, about 40 years.
So they have knowledge that they could share with us. And so I'm excited to be in conversation with them. I am standing in place of Danya. My name is Donna Craddock. I'm one of the co-owners of the Doc Bookshop. And this is
Ricky Clark.
Ricky Clark.
That's
and
right.
This is
Pharaoh Davis. Pharaoh Oyewole Davis.
okay. And Rick, well, I'm checking the channels. Tell them about you and your book and all that you got going on.
Okay, again, my name is Ricky Clark. I'm happy to have two books written. One is entitled What My Daddy Should Have Told Me, Life Lessons for the African American Male. And my newest book is called From Kindergarten to 12th Grade, Can Equal 13 Years a Slave. And I'm also in the process of writing a third book entitled Shaking the Family Tree from a Legacy of Trauma. I go throughout the country lecturing, designing, implementing, and coordinate programs to work with hard to serve youth. So thank you for having me.
Okay, wonderful. That third book is going to be awesome.
I can't wait till you all read it. And I hope to have it out by the 28th of March, my birthday.
Oh, okay. Okay. And he will definitely have a signing here at the Doc Bookshop.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
I've already been lecturing on it, so yeah.
Okay, Pharaoh, introduce yourself and share your book and all that you got going on.
My name is Pharaoh. I already said that, right? I do have a book. I did it's a book of poetry called Legacy, and it's a book of poetic tributes to people that have done some great things, or people that passed on who inspired me. It's done by myself and my dad, Abiodun Oyewole of the Last Poets. Nice book. We actually have a volume 2. It's in the works. And I also work with youth. I just commit myself to pouring into the youth because that's the future. And work with the program MBK.
We work together. That's right. That's right.
The awesome MBK program and MSK.
Oh yes, that's right. We do MSK and MBK.
My sister's keeper, my brother's keepers, and my
Don't get it twisted.
Right.
But I consider myself a historian, a lover of my people. I study everything from our spiritual belief systems to historical figures to just whatever we're into. I've learned. My dad taught me when I was 14, if you love your people, study everything about them, and I've taken that literally.
Yes.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, wonderful. I am so excited to be in conversation with the two of you on this subject that we're going to be dealing with, which is the MAAFA and the Transatlantic slave trade. And first, before I go any further, I just want to give a big clap kudos to our in-studio audience.
All right.
As well as to our YouTube audience and our Facebook audience. Thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate you. So let's just get, kind of right into it. But before we do that, I wanted to introduce some books.
Let's do it.
Yeah, well, even in the introduction to the books, I do want to pause parenthetically and remind them we may be talking about slavery today, but slavery is not African history. It's the interruption of our history that lasted fewer years than Mali, Songhai, Timbuktu, several other empires. So I don't want to get it twisted, especially with African History Month, that's the only history. It's just a very short portion of it. Thank you. And I want to let you know that it's an interruption of it.
We definitely stress that. We don't want anyone to think that Black history or African history begins in slavery. That is a false statement. Okay.
That's right. So go ahead.
And so and also check the podcast from last week where the two professors here, if you will, delved into the ancient African civilizations and pre-colonial Africa. They were talking about the different empires.
Correct.
And just the height of Egypt.
That's right.
And the other civilizations, and kind of just where we were. But now we're dealing with and actually, I'm going to ask you all just before we get started, which I'll set the tone as to what was the state of Africa that allowed the MAAFA, or the transatlantic slave, to occur.
Okay.
And while y'all churning that, I want to go ahead and just encourage you to get some books to add to your library that kind of deals with this subject. Of course, you can get them online at the Doc Bookshop, or you could just come to the bookstore. We are on the east side of Fort Worth. Been here for about 16 years.
That's right.
So definitely get these books for your library. And if you're not in the DFW area, please support your local independent bookstores. Yay.
You go through some of those books?
Yes. This one is The Black Holocaust for Beginners. Okay, this one is by S.E. Anderson.
Good read.
And I think this one is interesting because it has pictures or graphics in it.
Yeah.
They're hard graphics, but
Yes.
It helps people kind of understand the Holocaust, or what we call the Black Holocaust.
I call it the hell of a cost.
Yes, and
that's what the term
yeah.
MAAFA is used for.
And then I've been actually revisiting this one, the Christopher Columbus and the African Holocaust.
Hell yeah.
I've been revisiting him, and he breaks down ancient African civilization in 3 parts.
That's right.
He said there was 3 eras to
That's what
it
he talks about.
before
they came.
Europe. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So interesting, very interesting read, and he goes into.
But then the Arabs came, and then after that, all hell broke loose after that. So everybody started coming.
Yeah, and then I want to talk about this one.
Oh my gosh.
The Iceman Inheritance. This kind of delves into the aggression.
Why they act like that?
You can understand it if you're in a cold environment and lacking food and
2 cradle theory.
Yeah, and versus having a tree with fruits.
She got to
Darwin's theory comes from that.
Yeah, so one group was a little bit more aggressive than the other, and so anyway, and so kind of caught the other group off guard because they wasn't as aggressive.
That's exactly when you asked that question.
They treated you as guests. Hey, welcome, and didn't know the fullness. So that book kind of delves into that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we come over into the Americas.
All right.
And which one do you think I should go to? I guess I'll go with this one.
Go ahead.
The 1619 Project.
The White Lion.
The 1619 Project.
Yeah, I want y'all to read that.
And Nicole Hannah-Jones, she did a thorough work and just basically every day, whatever you think of is connected. I hate to say it, it's connected to slavery.
Right.
And she breaks it down from just
all Black people need therapy.
The housing, no, just just from loans to schools to restaurants. I mean, it's just she breaks it down. She explains how it's so systemic in our system, and so
and there's one that's not up there that you have too. I think we need to make sure we do it. It's called Some of Us.
The Sum of Us. Yes, that's a good one. And of course, we're going to deal with the Underground Railroad, as we get into the Americas. This is dealing with some authentic narratives and firsthand accounts from William Steele. Yes. And of course, we have to talk about Booker T. Washington, Frederick Douglass, and W.B. Du Bois.
Well, actually, Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, W. Du Bois.
Yes.
Three great.
Yeah, and it kind of should. Yeah, they start with the earliest and go the latter and go down. Yeah. Okay. And then, how many know about the Stone Soul? I should say Stone Soul. It's Stone Old Slave Rebellion. And I believe, have you ever heard of the Stone Soul picnic?
A lot of people don't talk about that. Yeah.
I wonder if the Stone Soul picnic was based on that title, the Stone Old Slave Rebellion. I don't know.
That's deliberate.
Right.
Most rebellions are not in history.
And there were plenty of rebellions, but this one
we still rebelling.
And we're still rebelling. But this one, it was a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the Gullah Wars, constantly fighting.
And then of course you have David Walker's Appeal. Danya. Oh gosh, if Danya was here,
that's all she talk about.
If Danya was here, she would delve into the David Walker's appeal. Okay.
You want to break it down a little?
And then, well, you can break it down. But hold on, I'm just gonna get to my books because I want y'all to talk. Okay, capitalism and slavery. I'm almost done. Capitalism and slavery. The title says it all.
Enough said.
Yeah. Right.
There wouldn't have no capitalism without slavery.
And of course, I didn't want to leave this one out. The life of. Okay, how do I say his name? El Dua Equaniano.
Equaniano. Mm-hmm.
Did I say that right?
Well, that's how I would pronounce it. That don't make it right though.
Right. Okay, but this is a popular
first-hand account.
First-hand account.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
You mentioned that one.
Now this one is the Arab invasion of Egypt.
Right.
And
that's why Egypt looks the way it does.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, and it
Enough said.
Enough said.
All right.
Oh, we got these over here, y'all.
Yeah,
how Europe underdeveloped Africa.
That's right.
And of course,
the destruction of black civilization. You
the
should read
destruction
this
of black civilization
every year. Reread it and read it every year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All these are great books to add to your library as we deal with this particular topic. So let's.
I mean, that's what you just showed is a lesson within itself. Just talking about, just briefly talking about those books is a whole lesson. Because
yes.
Years and years and years of research and I mean, just amazing.
And so we want to delve into it, Pharaoh. So my question is, she started off by asking.
Oh yeah, now this book here. Oh.
Heavy.
This is a textbook, okay?
Right.
But it's beautiful because it's so expensive. I mean, it covers a whole lot. And it has 10 units. Yeah. Ancient Africa, and then it deals with the transatlantic slave trade, and then it deals with the the American system, the forming thereof.
And what else I like about it, when you go into the book and you dove into it, space age. So you have QR codes. So if it's something that you're interested in, you put your phone to it. It'll give you even more information about it.
It shows you YouTube video, whatever.
YouTube videos. It can expand on it. If you want to teach African history in your school, homeschooling, get this book right here. It should be in everybody's house. I want to
finish my units. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, and then it goes into the emancipation and reconstruction. Then it goes into the Great Migration and its aftermath. I mean, it's so thorough.
Right.
It really is. Then it goes into the civil rights and American justice. Then economic system. Then black culture and influence. Then chapter 9 is dealing with Texas. And then chapter 10 is dealing with, it says the North Star, a guide to freedom and opportunity in Canada.
But not only that, the one that says Texas, if you bought this book in another state, it will have the information of that state.
Oh, really? Oh, yes. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, we know the author personally.
Yes. Dr. Walter Milton.
Dr. Milton. We know him very well. Both of them.
Yeah,
Pharaoh was just at his house the other day.
They did a great work. Work with this.
Pharaoh just went to the house. What'd you go to the house to get? The book on.
They got a book just like this on Latin America.
And Pharaoh was there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. So we really want to encourage households to have this book, and we got a special here at the Doc Book Shop.
And we have it from pre-K too. Pre-K, first grade, second grade, third grade.
So today we're dealing with Unit 2.
All right.
And I guess we're going to get a little bit into Unit 3.
Yeah. Look at
the American system. So Unit 2 and Unit 3 is kind of what we're dealing with.
Okay.
Start us off. You may ask the question.
I asked the question because, I want us to not kind of recap, but, kind of talk about what we talked about last week, so to get us to the point of where we are now with the MAAFA.
Okay, let's
talked about the empires. So what was the state of Africa?
So one of the empires we dove in last week was
get close. Come on.
One of the empires we dove in last week was about Kemet. We talked a lot about, and I always go with Kemet. There are a lot of empires, but I deal with Kemet because I felt like we was at our zenith, at our highest. And we talked about the fact that when you think about, they make the comment that Pythagoras is the father of math and Euclid is the father of geometry, broke down all that right there. So they couldn't be the father of math and geometry. They can't build a pyramid. And the fact that we talk about the fact that when they came there, the Europeans started naming stuff. We found out that the pyramid is not a pyramid, it's called a mar, which means to ascend. We also found out that we talked about the fact that the Sphinx is not a Sphinx. A Sphinx have wings is actually a Hermacan. So several things, and you get to realize that it was our ancestors that taught the world didn't teach us. So we talked a lot about that. And the reason I talked about Zenith is because even when you think about medicine, we talk about Imhotep. Today I was at Trimble Tech, Pharaoh, when I left y'all. I'm leaving about a Trimble Tech, and they got a nursing program. So I stopped and seen a lot of the kids that was in nursing program. And I asked a question. I said, do any of y'all know who Imhotep is? They was like, what is that? I said, well, do you all know what the Hippocratic Oath? They all raised their hand and say, yeah, they know the Hippocratic Oath. The Hippocratic Oath is what you say when you're a doctor or a nurse. I swear to Asclepius, the god of medicine. I said, well, who is Asclepius? They all paused. I said, well, Asclepius is Imhotep. So things like that to show them what we've done before the Europeans came into invade. But my biggest point that we made last year, I mean, I thought it was very important.
Not last year.
Last week. Was that the fact you got 3200 BCE and you have 30 BC. You would think that the 30 came before the 3200. Well, we were doing this thing from 3200 BC. You have to count down and then count back up. And when we start counting back up in 30 is when you see the Europeans coming in. I asked the kids the other day, and for my Christian brothers and sisters, look it up. The question was, what is the original name of Egypt? And it happens to be Kemet, which literally means land of the blacks. But also ask your book, how many times is Kemet mentioned in the Bible? And I'll stop right there. So that was some of what we talked about. Anything you want to add to it, Pharaoh, that I might have missed?
Yeah, so we went from Kemet into the times of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai empires. And there were other empires too, like the Benin Empire, but those were the
major empires.
Major empires during the time of from 500 AD to 1500 AD. And this is essential about what we're talking in regards to what we're talking about today, leading into the transatlantic slave trade. Right. And so the transatlantic slave trade, or we like to call the MAAFA, right?
MAAFA.
I call it the hell of a cause. Go ahead.
MAAFA is a Swahili word.
Right, it's a Swahili word, and it means the great disaster.
Right.
And Marimba Ani coined that term. And basically, Urungu, it came from her book Urungu, and Urungu is dealing with, I guess, again, she was trying to deal with the psyche of white people in dealing with slavery.
Wow.
And their superior complex that they have.
Okay.
And I have to look up and see what Urungu
And she
means.
called it the MAAFA. And then when he talk about the superior complex, oftentimes when I think about slavery, we always think about what black people went through and how harsh it was for us. But you would have to think, damn, how bad does it feel for the person who put the atrocities on them, right? What about, so I think she talks a little bit about that.
Yeah.
So what happens to them? How do they feel to know that your ancestors did such a horrible things? When I talk to young people, hell, I talk to old people, they have no idea what took place during the MAAFA. If you would just think about that, I think I was telling the kid the other day that when we were put on those ships and they seen the boats, how they packed us in like sardines. And oftentimes when they came up out of the ship, they had dreadlocks. There wasn't no dread. They were just matted. It was just locks because they had been on the boat so long that their hair just matted up. Certain things like that. If you would think about, if I would ask you, and I want y'all to think, but listen to the audience, when you think about slavery, what's the most horrible thing you think that could possibly happen? It's worse than that.
Yeah. And basically Urungu, and I guess she kind of came up with these terms, is an African-centered critique of European cultural thought and behavior.
Okay.
So that's what she was dealing with. She was trying to
but you know who else dealt with that? The ISIS paper.
The ISIS paper. There's a lot of them that dealt with that.
Francis West Wesley, she talks about that. So but go ahead, let's talk a little bit about what do you mean when you say the MAAFA? What took place? Talk to me about that.
So let's talk about where was Africa
and be explicit
when the MAAFA occurred. Like what was the states?
Okay, so these three great empires and from starting from west to central, partly East Africa, because it's the top half of the Sahara Desert. That part of Africa was just flourishing. We had salt, we had gold, we had all kind of natural resources.
Diamonds.
Diamonds. I want to stop right there. Pharaoh, we focus a lot on North Africa.
Okay.
But South Africa was flourishing too. Okay.
Okay,
so-
yeah, but he was just, well, he said he gonna share some of it.
Right,
So,
right.
at that time,
because
all-
we can critique that we just
yeah,
look at
but
the
let me say
northern
this
Africa,
part:
but
all of it was flourishing
all
before
of
they
it.
came. So you really can't say.
yeah, but
what
I
was.
guess reason why we focus on the north because that's where the invasion really
Started.
occurred. But
Okay.
go ahead.
Yes,
Sorry,
and this
bro.
is where up until the Songhai Empire was the last great
Oh yeah,
empire.
talk about
at the
something.
time, right? The Songhai Empire basically.
Sunni Ali.
Yeah, no, the Songhai Empire lasted from about 1100 to 1591. The War of 1591. That's what set off the Atlantic slave trade. Expedited it anyway because it was already going on from the 1400s. But that is what really set it off on just a whole.
And why do you
level.
say that, Pharaoh?
Because this was the first war that was fought on African soil using the gun.
There you go.
And that changed everything. This is how the white man became empowered.
Okay, so break
So
that
if they
down
didn't
for
have
us.
guns.
So break that down for us. Who was worried?
So the Songhai Empire was a great and mighty empire, and they
Yes.
were known for their tactics in fighting.
Talk
They
about
would use their
animals.
cattle, right?
Yeah.
They would just send their cattle first to trample their adversaries, and then they would come behind them with their bows and spears, whatever they were using.
Shaka did that too.
Right. Shaka did that too. But this was a unique situation where Morocco is a country in North Africa.
Yeah.
They were fighting against Morocco.
They call them Moroccans.
Right, and the Morocco had help from the Portuguese, and the Portuguese introduced the gun. So unfortunately, Songhai Empire, while attacking Morocco on their soil, they were send their cattle, and the Moroccan army had guns, and they shot those guns, and the cattle actually turned back on Songhai.
That's right.
But long story short, they defeated the great Songhai Empire. This news permeated through
The
of
world.
course, Africa, but Africa in particular.
Yes.
So when the slave traders came with these empty ships from Europe to Africa, the only thing they had on those ships were two things, and I think this is very profound because this is so prevalent today. What was on those ships? They had rum and guns. And if you look at black communities today, these liquor stores,
Rum and guns.
right? Just keeps us intoxicated.
So we still on the boat.
But this is this is the movie The Woman King.
Yes.
They touch on this, and it was really, really profound.
Yeah, y'all need to rewatch that.
Yes, we watch it. So this is what happened. They would come with these empty ships with the guns and rum, and they would come up to say King Ricky, right?
Yes.
In of a village there, and he would say, "Hey, I have something to trade. I just need prisoners of war." And either Ricky would trade, or Ricky would look at them, sideways, like I don't really know if I should trade my prisoners of war to you.
Right.
And then this is what would happen. And this is in The Woman King, they showed this. Okay, sorry to, bother you. I'm gonna go on about my business. Oh, but before I go, I want to let you know that I did trade with Queen Donna across the river.
Yes. She got guns.
She got guns now. But I just want to let you know, okay, have a nice day. Wait a minute. What you think he's gonna do? He's gonna stop and get those guns because no one could be at an advantage by having guns and no one else.
That's right.
So this became an epidemic. This is how the slave trade took off to a whole nother level.
Right.
And this is the story when you hear how black folks sold each other into slavery. We had no concept of slavery the way the Europeans were enslaving each other. And I just want to give you this so you can understand, so you can understand in context what they were doing to themselves during this same time. 500 to 1500 AD.
What were white people doing?
That was the Dark Ages.
That's right.
That was the medieval time. They coined this. 500 to 1500 AD. This is what they were doing. You see movies about it. Whether they have somebody that they whatever crime he committed, they would put him on a guillotine. What would
chop their heads off?
Well, they do stuff like
they burned the witches.
They would burn women alive.
Burn them alive because they were selling stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Or even had some type of spiritual intuition. They considered you a witch. They would even tie for whatever reason, they would tie two hands to one horse and your feet to another,
and drag,
and then set the body on fire so the horses would pull the body apart. So they had practice by the time they got us.
That's right.
They were doing that to themselves. And I want to let you know too, the word slaves comes from European
Slavics,
the Yugoslavians.
Yeah.
They were considered the lowest level of the Europeans at the time, and they were slaves. That's where the term comes from. So they had practice.
Right.
So by the time the War of 1591 happened, that's what set it off. And I'm gonna tell you, there's a movie that shows some of this, and it's really funny because what I'm about to tell you is hard to believe, but it's the Kung Fu Panda 2.
Oh, I never seen it.
Kung Fu Panda 2. So Kung Fu Panda is a
I never
cartoon.
seen one of them.
I
Right.
have to remember that. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Farrell.
So, but Kung Fu Panda 2, you know, the Kung Fu Panda was a panda, and he had a, you know, it was taking place in Hong Kong or whatever. You know, they were animals, so animated. But the adversary in this movie was the only animal out of all of the characters that was white. He was a peacock, and he had an English accent.
Wow.
And when he went so he had to go into the temple of the rhinos, and he was in there talking mess, like, yeah, I will have y'all worshiping me. It's like, well, don't you know we would crush you, peacock? You better be careful what you're saying. And he said, but he had a secret weapon. Guess what the secret weapon was? It was the cannon. They called it a fireball.
Right.
But this is how
Interesting.
This is
it's
how
so much in cartoons. Wow.
This is how they.
And Farrell, let me add something else to it. And when they make the comment that we sold our people into slavery, no, that's not true.
Yeah.
Because we were fighting people from way over and somewhere. I don't even know them. I don't have a relationship with you.
Right.
So, for example, I'm here in Fort Worth, but you in New York.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't fought each other, right? I bring you back over. You ain't with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like you saying the Irish were fighting against. They fought against each other. Did you call that selling each other or killing each other? You had the Irish fighting against the Germans or and vice. But what do you call that? But you tell us we were selling ours, and it goes back to what Farrell said. You didn't have a choice. You either sold them or you got sold.
That's right.
It was the guns. And I always tell the kids that it always started off with the guns. Yeah. But now that they got the guns, that ain't the sad part to me. Mm-hmm. The sad part is you said it. Their form of slavery is totally different from what we did. Yeah. Right?
Because even we were
our
able
slavery was different.
We were able to those because you saw a piece of it in The Woman King.
Yeah.
If you owe me some money, you could actually buy yourself. You could win your freedom. Sometimes you would even marry into the family.
You married to not only they married to the family, but if I owed you some money, you just came and worked it off. It's almost like you got a credit card, right?
It wasn't.
It's like right now. Well, it's like right now. If you got a credit card, you're a slave. You're a very ain't cooking slave, but you're still a slave because you owe.
It goes back to something, a book you showed, The Iceman Inheritance.
Iceman Inheritance.
And when you come from a certain climate where it's basically survival
it's called
of the
two
fittest.
cradle theory.
Yeah, when you survive of the fittest, it's like you're more harsh with those. You don't have an understand. Your level of humanity is a little different. Just put it that way.
Let me add that too. I think it was Sheikh Diop that called it the two cradle theory. He says that when you're born in a cold climate, you're most likely to be hostile and stingy. Right. If you're born in a warm climate, you're most be loving and giving. But the reason why you'll be hostile and stingy in a cold climate because you don't get the food. Are limited. The resources are limited. You have a good respect with God, all that, and you in a cave.
So you talking about?
But if you are in a warm climate, you loving and giving.
A food gathering people versus a food producing people.
That's correct.
Because the food gathering people you got to go kill your food sometimes and bring it. So it just creates a different understanding.
It's a different understanding.
As opposed to you could be walking down the road with your girlfriend
and there's food right there.
But you eat an apple, throw it over your shoulder.
Right.
And that soil was so rich. You come back 9 months later, there's an apple bush.
It's an apple bush.
Starting.
So we live like that. And we've always been like that. And when you're in a warm climate, you're more loving. And you're more giving. Even right now today, when it's cold, I'm just trying to get in and get out. I can't handle that cold. I'm on the south side of Chicago. I hate cold. Y'all hear me? My kids be talking, don't come to my house at 90 degrees now. Because
that's true. I'm
warm-blooded.
Temperature
and the temperature makes you act different. So if you imagine being in an ice age for all that time, in them caves in the exact same time when they was in the ice age in the cave, we were living in gold cups.
It creates a certain psyche.
Things are different.
So and also, I think just to create the stage for the MAAFA.
Come on.
The Europeans were, like you said, because of the environment, they were traveling more.
Yeah.
Expanding.
Yeah.
They were going to the New World. They were going to Asia.
What they call new.
They were expanding.
Yes.
And of course, when they go to these different lands, they seem you got a whole lot of this here.
What?
And so we're gonna take some of this back to our
tell them about Mansa Musa.
Yeah.
That's what threw it off. Yeah. After Mansa Musa did his
thing. So I think that also was a part
of it.
But it's just like,
MAAFA. I mean, that's why, because they want to expand.
I'm gonna tell you.
Talk about Mansa Musa.
I had a daycare, right? And for years, and I would often, I had a daycare for about 12 years. And I would often, every now and then, there would be a child that comes in that's very aggressive. And every now and then. And he would often see the children playing together in harmony. And either he wants to disrupt it, only because he really wants to be a part of it.
Right.
He doesn't know how. Right. Or he would take what's there, what they're playing with, and taking it as it's mine. You know,
Right.
And so I often think about this as just the analogy of civilizations. And this the European had this desire to just take even land, just claiming it, because we didn't when we traveled.
Africans didn't,
We didn't. That
claim
wasn't the thing. It was
land.
like we gonna do land. Okay, you build on it. You could maybe leave monuments or do whatever. And the people that
But it
the
belongs to the
travelers-
people.
a piece of the people that travel
It was just
stay. If they stay there, then you come back and you teach. And this is what the Olmecs did.
Yeah,
That's what they were
that's
known
what the
travelers. They, came and taught them. That's why there's pyramids.
That's why the
sitting
pyramids in Mexico. That's why the pyramids everywhere.
Right. So just this understanding of we're not claiming the land. We do work with the land.
That's
it's
right.
not ours. It's not mine.
Owning.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Like when they got over here, it's like the Indians. They like, hey, I want to share with you,
right.
and they like, oh, you share? Well, I'm taking.
That's right. Right.
Right. So
Right.
it says, I
Right,
always
right.
teach my grandkids how did we treat the invaders.
Right.
I teach we treat them like friends, visitors, and business partners.
That's right.
Ricky Man, how we treat them like friends, visitors,
That's
and
real
business
good.
partners.
That's real
And
good.
then when we treat them like friends, visitors, and business partners, they took advantage of us.
That's right.
It's like coming to my house and saying, "Oh, thank you for the hospitality, but I'm gonna put you in the damn bathroom and we're gonna run the house."
That's right. That's
And after you
exactly
take me out of the bathroom and come back, it's still my house.
That's right. That's right.
It's still my house.
Yeah. Mexicans, can we say?
Yeah.
Say Mexican. But anyway,
Tejas, it's
so-
still my house.
So from this is when this lands. So and also
Wait.
I want to give this part too. When in those African villages, when they would come and ask for prisoners of war, sometimes even if you didn't have prisoners of war, say King Pharaoh didn't have prisoners of war, but I didn't want to be at a disadvantage by not having
Guns.
arms. So guess what I would do?
Share my people.
I would tell them to come back.
Find some
I would
prisoners.
go
Find-
I would go
find
find them.
some.
I would tell my
chief?
go kidnap some young men or whatever, because we got to have
That's right, those guns.
Unfortunately, this became an epidemic, and this is why the slave trade became a successful system.
Right.
This
And
is
I don't
real.
go talk about the slave trade, but when I hear the slave trade, what happened? What do you mean slave trade? What happened in this trade?
Yeah,
And
so-
also, I think there's two slave trades going on. We often focus on the European slave trade,
Mhm.
but there was the Arab slave trade.
Oh
going on
yeah,
as well.
that was a bigger slave
Yeah.
trade at
and,
first.
and there's books. Well, I think,
You got it right there.
Well,
The
this
Arab
one-
invasion of Asia.
Well,
and they both was atrocious.
But this
Yeah.
is the
And
deal.
people.
The Arabs, they traded in Africa, in North Africa. That's why they're there in Egypt today. So they actually did set up a lot. The houses,
Right.
where the houses were known traders, and they did trade enslaved Africans. That's
Yeah,
what,
they
that's,
did.
That's what happened. It's just keeping it real. And
Yeah.
but from what they,
But the
Europe-
Arabs did
Europe-
it. Believe it
yeah.
right now today, they taking over the trade.
Yeah.
You like T-shirts, all that stuff over there.
Yeah.
Arabs running that.
Yeah.
And even in our community, let me give you this: the first 5 invaders of Africa were Asians, Arabs, Greeks, Romans, and Northern Europeans. Out of that order, and out of those 5, the 2 that controlled our water and food was Asians and Arabs. Look at that. And right now today, who owns the convenience stores, gas stations, donut shops? Can a black man make a donut? Even in our community today,
Yeah.
It's
same
Arabs and
invaders.
Asians.
Asians and Arabs.
And we
And I'm
also-
not mad at them, but my question is, when we gonna do it?
And oftentimes we could like some of the criticism we give to Christianity
Come on.
because of the Europeans adopting Christianity. Christianity and Islam were both created in Africa,
That's correct.
but they were adopted
And manipulated.
by other foreign cultures, and thus the culture that lives in Islam today is because of the people that adopted it. Same
Right.
thing with Christianity. Christianity at its core was African, but then when the
Ethiopia,
theology was explained, it was explained by foreigners, so their cultures in it. So, but the same thing with Islam. We think Islam, I love to see old footage of like Muhammad Ali and stuff, talk about, it's the original name, it's the original, the Asiatic man's original.
Asiatic
But
black man.
to be honest
Yeah.
with you, that is not ours.
Right.
The Islam religion that we know of today is not African.
Come on now.
You can see how the women are dressed. You can see just how they treat the women. I mean, it's just not
Africans
African.
never treated
It's
women
not.
like that.
It's,
So,
it's
Would
Arab.
you say the same
It's
thing for
Arab.
Christian?
Yeah.
Same
Damn
thing with
thing about the
Christianity.
Christians.
That's the English. The Europeans
Christian-
adopted it and put their
They
culture
showed
in.
it.
That's
Not Christianity. That's-
even how they just how they depict God as a God of wrath and jealous God and all of this. That's because they come from a climate
Of
where
jealous
when you look at
people.
nature is the closest thing to just basically how we create the image of God comes to nature.
Come
And
on
we
now.
have a harsh winter and you don't know if you're going to survive, and this is God just giving this wrath, as opposed to a calm climate in Africa where everything is, we ain't got to really worry about nothing. It's just a whole nother understanding. God is benevolent, beneficent, and loving. And it's not about wrath and jealousy. And it's a different concept.
Well, you brought up the wrath
so
and the jealousy.
let's
What wrath did they put on our people when they brought us here?
So,
Can you talk about that?
yes. So this part. So after, so it's the MAAFA.
So
right?
you
So
did
my
that.
MAAFA.
Come on.
So
Talk
once
about
we
the
got the slave trade going to bring us over here.
I want to hear what the slave trade
the
was.
slave
What do
trade,
you mean?
So
what did they do?
we knew, they knew they were kidnapping people from Songhai.
Come on.
Just
Ghana.
one empire in particular, right? Songhai, Ghana, Mali. These are rich people we're kidnapping. There is no way they can know that I'm a child of Mali. I'm a child of Songhai. We have to strip their identity.
That's right. Talk about
So that's why they had to be called a new name.
That's
These are
right.
You are no longer whatever your name is.
Kunta.
And matter of fact, you're a nigger.
That's
we had
right.
to give you this terminology. And the terminology.
that's part of the dehumanization.
Yeah. Otherwise, they could not have enslaved us.
Well, even for the humanization for themselves, they had to look at us as
Right.
animals because
Right.
of their own, what they
had
call
to justify it themselves.
justified for themselves.
And I want to give this part too. Since the very first slave ship that came here, there were always, trust and
We've
believe,
always been running away.
but there were always white people,
Come on.
Europeans that were against the slave trade.
Oh, yes.
That were like, nah, we're not down with this.
Yeah, white people, all
But-
white people went down with it.
But
They
like,
have a choice.
but check it out.
That's right.
But
Power.
like today, the ones that had the power, the money, like the ones that owned the slave ships or owned the plantations, or owned, the ones that had the money was like, look, this is what, just like the ones that owned the Teslas and
Right.
owned the,
Right. Right.
you get what I'm saying?
This is the direction
This
we're
is the
going.
direction we're going. In spite of what you feel,
Right.
this is what we're doing.
Right.
And you're going to benefit from it.
Right.
So that's the deal. But so there was always resistance to slavery, but unfortunately,
And when I think about it too, I mean, I just think about the fact that how the church allowed it to do. They gonna pray and say they didn't have a soul. I would have to do things like you just say we didn't have a soul, and then would put us on these boats and put them together.
every slave ship,
Every slave ship, they had to pray for it.
by the Pope.
By the Pope, he had to anoint that, allow them to do that.
Do you know that?
The Pope.
Hmm.
And so, but not only that, but what did you have to do to a people? So that's why when you think about the Caribbeans, I call it the Caribbean, they take us someplace, you have to break you in. You can't just get on a wild horse and ride it. You have a breaking ground. So I want to talk a little bit about the breaking grounds when you talk about the
Before
MAAFA.
we go there, I just want to share about the door of no,
No
return.
return.
Because I had an opportunity to go to
Talk to
Ghana and experience. I was at the El Camino Castle and had
And the door of no return is in Senegal.
huh?
There's more than one.
Oh, there's one.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's more than
I'm
one.
talking about Gorée Island. Gorée
Yeah,
Island.
you talking about Gorée Island.
Yes, no, I went to El Camino Castle
El Camino.
in Ghana.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because actually we did a
Oh wow.
we did a study in Accra, so we went to the coast.
Ah.
And I'm telling you, it is when you go into the dungeons,
Nothing like that.
you can still feel it.
That's
I mean,
amazing.
you and I'm not. I thought it was crazy. It kind of makes you go crazy because you kind of still see faces. You know, it's a very spiritual experience actually.
Wow.
When you come up, I mean, honestly, I'm telling you, from that experience, I knew I was supposed to do something. Like you can't go there and not do something, right? And I think that's how the bookstore came about. But anyway, that experience literally changed. I mean, we just came out crying. I was with a group of
And nobody was
students.
talking, just came out crying. Everybody crying.
So
because it's because the horror of that. You know, I mean, we didn't experience it, but we
Yeah, you
experienced
did.
it.
Well,
So-
let me share it.
You know,
did it. It's in your DNA.
because
in your DNA. But I want to say something to that.
the
because
horror of it, though.
This part is going to be a little touchy, but I hope someone's
Say
listening.
it,
I
Pharaoh.
hope someone's listening. I hope the people I'm talking about, somebody's listening, because there's been an insult of debate as far as I'm concerned. There are those black folks, African Americans,
I know where he
who
going.
think that number one, the slave trade
Didn't
was
happen.
a myth,
Yeah.
and that we are really
They
indigenous.
can't think
They
that.
do.
Telling you,
And if they do, they just really, and I'm
They
going to
don't
say
read.
this.
but this is the deal. I understand.
They don't read.
I
No,
understand.
there's a condition called
Yeah.
that where it's, I
Yeah.
forget the name of it, but it's a
Stockholm
disconnect.
syndrome.
It's a disconnect.
Cognitive dissonance.
Cognitive
The word
dissonance,
cognitive dissonance.
whether you want to disassociate
That's what white people
Right.
had to do,
from
and black people
Right.
do it
your
too.
experience.
Black
And,
people
and
do it
those
too.
who are saying that are
Right.
doing that
Black
cognitive
people do it too.
dissonance.
Now, the part that
Cognitive
the part
dissonance.
that gives it any validation at all is the fact that yes, there
were black
many,
people.
Right,
There's no
they
place
were
in the
here.
world you
But
can
to-
go.
No,
but to-
no,
just-
the
just to
number,
blanket it,
the number of there's a number out there on
Yeah,
how
but they-
many people
They said over 6 million.
died.
Yeah,
during
over
the
6
slave
million
trade.
Africans
Yeah.
died in the
but
slave
to
trade.
dismiss,
Yeah.
Over.
even if I often I love looking at features of black folks and seeing like, so for example, like we
Let me
all
look
know
up those
we all
numbers.
know like Babyface,
Yeah.
or like Pharrell, the
Yeah.
producer. You can look at them and see maybe they have those Native American
Yeah.
features, right?
Right.
But when you look at somebody like Michael Jordan, Serena Williams, Shaquille O'Neal,
You don't
there
want
is
to think
no
that.
question
Right.
where they come from. You
Right.
can see
Africa.
that their twin brothers and sisters are
Right.
right there.
Right.
There's no question.
That's right.
So I'm just saying, yes, there were some of us here, but to dismiss the whole story,
Right. And that's what saddens me.
yes, it's crazy.
When you dismiss that and say that it didn't happen. And not only that, some of them say not that it didn't happen. They say it wasn't as many as we said.
Yes.
It's more than what we
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
And not only that, you excluded the ones in the Caribbean.
And I know where my DNA comes from. Mine was tested back to Benin.
And I did my DNA.
Yeah.
I'm going back to Cameroon. We're part of the Bimelech tribe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I do know that.
I need to do mine.
Mine is
Rick,
Bimelech.
but
I
Rick-
did the African ancestral.
Yes,
Go ahead.
and I was checking out with yours. Guess what? They come from not only
Egypt.
Egypt, but they come from Ethiopia.
Yeah.
So when people
Egypt.
say you look like Ethiopia, it's
that's
still,
why they said that.
yes.
Yeah. So I've been doing that.
Because you look like it. You look like
And the reason I'm able to probably pull that stuff in my head about
Right.
Kemet is because
Okay.
that's where my people from. It's in my
That's right.
DNA.
'Cause-
But I want to say something else though. Listen to this.
Yes.
Woo. I don't want to cry.
Yeah.
But the way they treated our women and children and men doing this MAAFA aspect. So you got to really break the man to do that.
Yeah.
The fact that you were raping the boys and the girls
Mhm.
in front of the mothers and the daughters, they would go into the room and rape the wife in front of the husband. What do you think that did to them?
Mm.
And the sad part is that rape and all that stuff that they did, it's been passed down from one generation to the next. And we still dealing with it right now.
Yes.
So the fact that you can abuse somebody or do these things to them, where did you get that from?
Yeah.
Where does it come from? And it comes all the way back to that time. So I've been reading
Right.
this book. It's called It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wolin, talking about trauma. And it talked about this young lady who wanted to commit suicide. And they asked, well, how do you want to die? She said, I just want to go into an incinerator and just die. And she's like, well, anybody in your family ever did that? She said, no. She said, well, go home and shake the family tree. She goes home and shake the family tree and found out that her grandmother, her great-grandmother, was during the Holocaust. She said her mother, her father, her sister,
During
her
the
brother.
African Holocaust, you gotta be specific.
No, this is during the Jewish Holocaust.
Oh,
Jewish people.
Jewish,
Oh.
okay.
These Jewish people. This is a white girl. Jewish people.
She's talking about how the genes work.
Talk about the genes work. So she experienced that. And so she went back and she told her she was pulling it from her grandmother.
Mhm.
So he's saying that if it affected them
Mhm.
for the Holocaust, how's it affecting us for our Holocaust?
Yeah.
And so you find in people where the mother was raped,
Mhm.
the daughter was raped, the granddaughter, the great-granddaughter, all raped by somebody, not the same person, but the same experience.
Part of the
And so if you would track it back, you could have been raped by your
That's trauma.
ancestors all the way from things like that. And we're not talking about that. So that's why I was excited about to come here today, because we have to realize that a lot of the sugar honey iced tea we're dealing with right now, it's been passed down.
And let me say
How
this.
you going to abuse a child? Where did you get that from?
And Rick, to your point, I love telling this part of how it connects to today.
Come on.
We often talk about these stories, and when we talk to young people, I say slavery is a very long time ago. Matter of fact, this year marks 160 years ago.
It ain't a long time.
Right? It seems like a long time because
Yeah.
1865
Right.
and
Well, Ruby
2025.
Bridges is still here.
That's 60
She's
years.
still living.
But check this out, just to show you how not.
That wasn't slavery. That was.
I know.
Let me show you how this is not that long ago. I'm 56 years old.
Yeah.
I still consider myself able to connect with the youth, right?
You do a good job.
Right, born in 68. A lot of people are around doing great things born that year, right? Now, I was raised up along with my grandmother. Matter of fact, the person that probably has the most impact on me. She's passed on. That is my maternal grandmother. She was born 1919. She was raised by her grandmother.
My grandmother was born in 1919.
Awesome year.
Go
Awesome
ahead.
year. She was raised by her grandmother and her great-grandmother. Her great-grandmother was born in slavery. So I was raised by a woman who was raised by a woman born in slavery. not that long ago.
That's why I'm talking about the
ago.
genetics. Well, if you
Wow.
the term epigenetics, if you all know anything about epigenetics, meaning things has been passed down from one to the next, and what they mean by the genetics being passed on, it's building on top of it. Right, and you bringing this down, and you're passing it to your children, and now you want to know why your daughter want to commit suicide or want to be drugs. Even this one boy, he kept stabbing people. Come to find out, his great grandfather stabbed a white man in self-defense, but it bothered him so much he became an alcoholic, and he passed it down to his children. So genetics is real. So all the stuff that they did to our ancestors caused us to act this way.
We're not even talking about all the stuff that happened during slavery, but during slavery,
Go ahead. I'm gonna give you another one.
Just during MAAFA, even though we were brought here, the first thing that was taken away was, of course, our names.
Then
our
morals,
language. Could not
speak.
The mother could not speak.
Couldn't play the drums
in his native language, right? Couldn't play the drums because that was a form of communication, right? There was only one place, and this wasn't the beginning of slavery. During later on, there was a place in New Orleans called Congo Square.
Congo Square, I've been there.
The only place they would let them play only on Sundays.
Yes.
They would let them play the drums.
It's wonderful children's book called
and we did a walk from there to the water, how they took the slaves from that. I've been there to the Congo.
And so there was stories before Congo Square in other states where if you were caught playing the drums, they would cut your hands off. If you were caught speaking native language, they would cut your tongue off. They would do extreme measures just to instill fear. And I know I learned this from what's my girl's name? The post-traumatic slave syndrome. Joy DeGruy. Right. It used to be Joy Leary. But she said she broke this down. She said what you were talking about when they have a slave community and they needed to make an example. They would take the strongest men and kill one, and then the other one break them down right before death. And what would this do to the mothers?
Had the mothers up front. They had the mothers up front that's pregnant.
That's right. So, but let me tell you, she said this. She said, so when oftentimes we see, she said, like if you see a little, and you be in a bank in a line, you see a white mother with her son, a little 3-year-old son, and he's running around. And you see a black mother with her 3-year-old son, and he's looking at the white boy running around, and he wants to do that, and the mother looks at him, don't even think about it.
That's right.
This has been passed down because
from one generation to the next.
You can't afford to let him do that because of the past.
That's right. And she's thinking that. But we still think that today, bro. But even with us knowing what we know.
We're probably still kind of overly protective.
We still like that right now. But that goes back to the genetics.
And what does that do to the boy looking like, why can't I do that?
That's up his psyche. He said, well, why does the white boy get to do that and I can't? But let me get some more. 5 things we couldn't do during slavery. I'm glad you brought up the drum. The only musical instrument that was ever banned in the yet to be United States of America was the African drum.
Because they knew it was communicating.
But because they banned the drum, they gave us the drums. They gave us this. They gave us banjos because they wouldn't allow us to play that drum, which was the first form of communication. So there were 5 things we couldn't do. We couldn't play drums, couldn't have church without a right person, couldn't learn to read and write. Couldn't own property, couldn't testify in court. Those are things that we couldn't do. And now you telling me you taking the damn books out the library. You don't want us reading. You don't want us writing. Something is wrong with us, like you trying to take us back.
And during slavery, you said, I'm gonna give a church folk this.
Talk about the church.
And we couldn't have church. Ricky
couldn't have church without a white
person present. And if you were in church while the white person was present, and you were about to leave, if you were going to be gone for a little bit of time, you would hold up number 2, like you're about to do number 2. This is where it comes from.
It's still
if you're going to be gone for a short period of time, you hold up number 1.
We still do it right now.
In church, people still do it.
Boy, they still be doing it.
Not every church.
Well, let me give you the church. Yes, they do.
They walk up.
Let me tell you something else.
No, a lot of churches.
Well, what about this one? When we do the offering, we put a hand behind our back and do the basket.
Why is that?
Because they've been taught that we were still, and we still doing it right now today. So a lot of that genetic stuff is being paid, and you don't know why you doing it. Why you wake up in the morning, then now you got these boys coming up with their afros and their hair. You saying, well, why do you do your hair like that? I just woke up and wanted to do it. No, the ancestors are calling us home. And that's the reason why they don't want us to read our books. Because when we learn that our ancestors came from greatness, then we act great. We talk great. We walk great. Everything is totally different. Every kid I've ever taught about their history, and we don't talk about slavery. We don't even talk about slavery. But
it's a hard topic.
Well, not because it's a hard topic. It's because I didn't want you to concentrate on that and not realize the greatness of what you came from. Because if you would think about the fact, I told them,
like you said, it's an interruption.
It's an interruption of our history. They would, folks, that we rebelled against slavery for years. We did everything. And when you didn't want to eat, to starve yourself to death, they would actually take a funnel, break your darn teeth.
Oh, and
Put
they
it in
showed
your
that in
mouth.
that movie.
It's called
Uncle
yeah,
Tom's Cabin.
yeah,
no,
Uncle
no,
Tom's
not
Cabin.
Uncle Tom's Cabin. Also
And you
in
need-
Birth of a
Birth of a Nation.
Birth of a Nation.
Yeah, you got to see
What's
Birth
his
of a
name again?
Nation.
Because we ain't heard
Nat.
from him since.
Nat. His name was Nat too. Forgot his
What was? I gotta look that up.
Nat.
Birth of a Nation, but
We
you
haven't
also
heard from him.
hold up, but you all Uncle Tom's Cabin. It does it in there. I'm like, how did they get the actors to do that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was really good. But you know what else you need to watch? Sankofa.
Yeah, Sankofa the Return.
And the fact that they would take 4 trees and belt 4 trees, have the trees, bend the trees over, have you tie 1 tree to this arm, 1 tree to that arm, 1 tree to the foot, 1 tree to the other one, and snap the thing and have them snatch your arms and limbs from left. And then we have the babies, have the mothers who are pregnant up front so they can see it. You need to watch that movie called Sankofa.
Yeah. So even in all of the horrors that were done to us,
We survived.
Still some affect us today.
It's
mentally.
affecting us.
But I want to let you. I just want to share.
Nate Parker.
Nate
Yeah,
Parker.
Nate-
I know his name was Nate.
Yeah.
So I want to.
Nate Parker's
I wanna
movie.
Well, they
shit.
didn't do that
The
part.
Birth of a Nation.
Yeah, but they wouldn't let about the church part. It was because of Nat Turner.
Right. Yeah.
After Nat Turner did what he did, they wouldn't let you have church without a white person.
Yeah. So
Can't be in groups of 5.
even during slavery.
Come
I
on.
want to let this be known because this narrative we never get. During slavery, the people that were in bondage, we taught them so much.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's uncanny. I'm even still learning stuff because I'm like, no, they had to know. They did not know how to build.
No, they didn't.
They did not know how to build. They would build on wrong land and just they didn't know how to understand foundation before they build. They didn't know what
Know how
to
to plant.
grow. They didn't know what foods to
But
grow.
that-
They didn't know how
that's
to
why-
cook the food,
but
how
they-
to season the food.
They still know
They
how to
didn't know
season the food.
hygiene.
But that's why a lot of
They didn't know hygiene. Didn't know what
that's why a
soap.
lot of the patents came out
That's right.
during that time.
Well, they
Right.
stole them patents. Next week we should be talking about all the stuff they
Dr.
stole.
John Henry Clark said
Yeah.
their greatest invention was the patent office
Yeah, it was a patent office,
'Cause
not
they-
the patent,
because they claimed
because they
everything
cleaned
for
everything.
themselves.
So we should talk about that
There's
next
a
week.
book. I didn't bring that one. I should have brought
What?
that one. But there's a book that talks about all of the African American inventions.
Right.
Oh, I got that book.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
got
I
it.
know that's a little after slavery.
Yeah, I got it. But
A
but
lot of it
no,
was during.
But
Yeah,
this
yeah,
was
yeah,
during
yeah.
slavery.
A lot of those events.
How you get your potato chip?
Right, right,
It was
right.
doing
Yeah,
slavery.
Because it was just kind of helping them deal with slavery.
How you
They
get your
were creating-
chitlins?
Right, right.
How you get some
So-
chitlins?
So there's some 2 foods that I mentioned these 3 items that we all know that
What?
came from black folks. But one is, and it's obvious because why would they put a black person on the box? So rice, they had no idea how to pick
Grow rice.
And the deal is right. The word geechee is a term used for people from Charleston, South
Right.
Carolina, because Charleston, South Carolina is very similar to West Africa.
Right.
It's the same piece
The
of
soil.
land before Pangea. It's the same
Right.
piece of land, same insects, same everything. So the rice fields, it's hard to pick rice. It's usually in swamp.
Yes,
so
it
the
is.
word geechee actually means rice picker. So rice did not
Geechee.
come from China.
Right.
Rice came from Africa.
What?
So I mean, but rice. When you look at Uncle Ben, why is he on the rice box? Another one is pancakes. He created pancakes. That's why they have Aunt Jemima on the pancake.
Talk to me.
But another
Not anymore though.
Not-
They
well,
took Aunt Jemima.
It took
Yeah,
off, but
she
at
got
first they
off
gave
the
her a perm. And
Yeah, then they took off
then
the
they
box.
took off. But also this is a So I don't know if y'all remember this. When you go to the movies, you get your Raisinets.
Yeah, I
But
remember
you
that.
remember goobers?
Yeah, I remember
They
Google.
don't see them much anymore. Goobers
No.
are chocolate covered peanuts.
I remember
But
that.
the African word for peanut is goober. It
I
ain't
did not know
goober.
that.
It's goober.
I did not know
And
that.
that was the African word. That's why.
Yeah, I used to get them when I used to go to the movies.
Yeah, that's why George Washington Carver mastered it because it came from Africa. The peanut was very popular in Africa, and he with that oil.
It was
he
in his-
created-
Oh, he did
He
everything.
It was in
created
his
so
DNA.
much. Yeah, he created
yeah.
so much. With that oil, he created paint, he created shampoo, he
But
created
Pharaoh,
detergents, created soap.
remind them when we keep saying, well, that wasn't doing slavery. Yeah, it's still doing slavery. As long as somebody's still over you, it's still slavery. It may not be the same thing,
Yeah,
but it's not right.
yeah.
You don't treat people like that, and we still treat, and then it just cuts my gut. Why you don't want? How you gonna tell me what I can read and what I can't read?
Mhm.
How you teaching our kids what they can? And you know what I'm mad at? I'm mad at our teachers.
No, don't be
And so-
bad.
so-
Yeah, well, ask me why. I'm
Right.
mad because you know it's wrong to teach those kids that. So why you ain't protesting? Why you ain't out on the line? When you talk about the kids gonna walk out, hell, the teacher should walk out. You know it's wrong. You know it's wrong. And those kids ain't. You go something they ain't learning.
So,
Okay.
so during slavery, we were not allowed to read or write. The only person that was allowed to read or write was the pastor. The pastor was given scriptures.
Nat Turner.
The pastor was given specific scriptures to read to the congregation.
They still doing it now.
Right, right. And so this is why the only person allowed to read was the pastor. The reason. right? And so this is why the church was very instrumental in giving us salvaging our minds, but at the same time it was keeping us,
Okay,
steady.
well,
Under the thumb.
we can go on and on about history.
His story.
But
let's talk about my
our
story.
story.
That's right.
Well, our time is up, so we're going to close out. Next week, before we close though, is there any closing points you want to make at this time before we close out?
I'm gonna leave you with this. We knew not, we study. We learned all there was to know. We taught others. Then we forgot what we had learned. Then we forgot that we had forgotten. Now we are taught by those who were once taught by us knowledge that we already had. So we study. We learn all there is to know. We teach others. Will we forget again? No.
Good stuff.
Okay.
Good stuff.
All righty. Is there anything you want to close out with?
Do you have the book? I was thinking about 1619. The 1619 Speaks. Remember that book they created?
Yes. It was a magazine.
No, it was a small book they created, and I have 2 of my poems in there, and one of them is befitting, but I don't have it on.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, yeah, I meant to ask you that. You know what I'm talking about? When the sisters came and created that book here.
Yeah, I don't have that one.
Okay. Well, anyway, I just want to say I just appreciate this platform because I mean we could go on for days. Like we said, we've been studying for decades.
Yeah.
And there's a wealth of knowledge that I am just honored to even have. From sitting at the feet of people like John Henry Clark and Dr. Ben, seeing them speak in person.
Yes, I did too.
Crazy.
Chancellor Williams came to our
No, you know who else I got? I remember Stokely Carmichael. He'd be like, my name was Stokely Carmichael. Kwame Ture would sit with us, and we would be up to like 5, 6 in the morning when I was a part of the Pan-African movement out of UTA. And I don't see a lot of people studying their history like they used to. We got to get back and start studying our history, people. We've got to. I'm in the schools and I'm talking to the kids. And one of the questions me and Pharaoh asked is, can you name 2 black men who done something great? And 9 out of 10, the kids cannot name 2. They can't play sports. They can't be entertainers. And Martin and Malcolm can't be one of them. They stumped. People, let's get back to teaching our people. Love you. Thank you, Donna. I wouldn't miss this for the world. See you next week.
All right.
See you next week. And next week we will discuss the Reconstruction
That's right.
to civil rights.
That's right.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Until next time.